It's official. Benjamin Sesko to Manchester United is a done deal. Fabrizio has given his here we go. David Ornstein has given his exclusive. Signed, sealed, delivered. Now, the fee 76.5 million euros plus 8.5 million euros in add-ons, right? If you want the pounds, 66.4 million pounds, 7.4 in add-ons. And I understand it's a lot. I understand that's a lot of money, and I understand that a lot of people are naturally apprehensive about this deal. But I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on this. I have in previous videos, but really expand on it, how I think he fits into this team, and why I'm such a big fan of Benjamin Sesko and this move. Because seriously, guys, I think we're signing one of the best young talents in his position in the game. I know a lot of people are really nervous about bringing in another young player. And my answer to that is I think Rasmus Højlund has permanently scarred this fan base. And I get it. He's scarred me too. He has scarred me too. The last 2 years, Rasmus Højlund has effectively made Man United play with 10 players when he's on the pitch. His finishing has been inconsistent. His movement has been non-existent. His first touch has been questionable. Everything about the guy's game is raw. That's the only way I can describe it. Could he one day become a very good center forward? Perhaps, but very clearly, the guy's platform when he joined the club was at a really, really low level to the point that it almost felt like he was learning on the job of every game. I, on numerous occasions, have said I believe Rasmus Højlund doesn't understand how to play the center forward position at the elite level. Just the way he positions his body and shapes his runs, and it's like he hasn't played at this level, at this in this position for long enough. He doesn't play it to an elite level. He doesn't think it like an elite striker. Benjamin Sesko has now come in for a similar fee, to be honest with you, right? And in fact, I think perhaps even less, don't quote me on that, but 66 million pounds. I think that's less than what we paid for Højlund. Maybe with the add-ons, it's around the same. 22 years old. And I'm not going to say Sesko is the finished product. He definitely isn't. But Sesko is a lot more refined at this point in his career than Højlund was. He absolutely is. And yet when you kind of look online, and I understand looking online when it comes to Man United fans in particular, it's always take it with a pinch of salt, right? Because the fan base is so big, you're going to find fans on any side, right? You're going to find them on one extreme, on the other, and then on the entire spectrum in between. But I've seen a lot of Man United fans kind of approach this signing and look at it with apprehension. Apprehension is the only word I can kind of use here. And again, I think part of it is because of Højlund, but also I think Man United fans were really desperate to bring in a proven center forward this year. And I completely understand it, right? Playing number 9 for United is a big ask. It's a lot of responsibility leading the line for this club. I think it was Gary Neville who said the 2 hardest positions to play for United are goalkeeper and center forward, because so much is expected of you. So many eyes are on you at all time. And you are basically like in midfield, right? It's important what you're doing, but you got another midfielder next to you. At center backs, like it's all about partnerships, right? Goalkeeper and center forward are lonely positions at times, because it's really all or nothing on you. And for a youngster, that is a lot to kind of have on his shoulders. But I think Sesko's shoulders are literally and figuratively large enough to carry the burden of wearing the number 9 shirt for Man United, whether it is figuratively the number 9 or literally. I think he's capable of doing it. When I watch Benjamin Sesko, guys, I look at a player and I genuinely believe what I'm saying here. This has the potential to be one of the best center forwards in the world. How many center forwards, guys, if you close your eyes and just imagine, are 6'5", quick off the mark, very good technically, can strike the life out of a football, have the most goals since 2023 of any under 23 player in Europe's top 5 leagues, has a goal catalog that can rival practically anybody, and also has the personality as well too to make it at a big club. You listen to Sesko speak and you can tell he's made for this kind of moment. How many strikers out there have all of that, and on top of that are only 22 years old? I think the list is few and far between. Now, that's not me throwing unreasonable expectation that Sesko will become the best striker in the world, right? Because although I believe he has a lot of talent, it's now Sesko's job and United's job and Amarim's job to refine that talent, to develop it and mold it into the player he has the potential to be. Because potential is one thing. The process to get that potential is another thing, and it's arguably more important than your initial potential. Now, it's everyone's job to make sure that potential doesn't go to waste. And I think that the concerning thing of United is that there's been quite a few talented players that have come to this club, and they haven't been able to realize their potential for one reason or another. But at United, it typically tends to be the case. How can Sesko be the one that kind of the buck stops with him? One thing with him, though, is that at least the talent is there. And that's why with a player like Sesko, I will always be willing to take the risk on a signing like this. Yes, 66 million pounds is a lot of money. Yes, it is. I'm not going to shy away from that. It's a lot of money. If he fails, my goodness, we're going to look back at this and say this was one of the bigger flops we made. But I'm sorry, I will always be willing to see my club spend big money on talents I believe are as good as this guy than, for example, players who I look at and I just think to myself, like, oh my goodness, even if you succeed at this club, the ceiling you have is average. It is. I felt that way about Højlund. I feel that way about Ugarte. I don't feel that way about Sesko. I didn't feel that way about Martial. I definitely didn't feel that way about Pogba. I don't feel that way about Sesko. I didn't feel that way about Yoro. When you're given talent like this, I think it's worth taking the risk. And I'm happy that Man United have gone this direction, because if the alternative was a 29-year-old Watkins, it would have deeply discouraged me in terms of believing in the path that Ineos kind of want to go down. Ineos have been very, very consistent with their belief that to get Man United back to where they want to get to, it has to come in building around young players, building around young talents. And signing Watkins is just completely against that USP. Yes, Watkins might step into Man United tomorrow and be a more surefire hit in season 1 than Sesko. But I'm sorry, Man United needs to stop thinking about immediate success. They need to stop thinking about from day 1, from season 1. They need to start thinking about season 2, season 3, season 4, season 5. How does this project look down the road? How do we make sure that we're not only competitive in 2 years, but also competitive in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years? Man United are not winning anything this season, anything substantial, whether they sign Watkins or whether they sign Sesko. So the focus has to be, how can we best position ourselves to be in the running for the best players, but also be in the running for the biggest trophies in the next 2-3 years. And I personally believe signing players like Sesko, signing players like Lenny Yoro, signing players like Carlos Baleba, if it is to happen, that's how you best position yourself to do it. I'm very happy with this deal. And I honestly think 66 million for a 22-year-old center forward who's considered one of the bigger talents in his position in the game is fair value in this market. Guys, I'm sorry. I look at the market this summer and it has completely skewed the way I look at signings. Madueke went for, 50 million. Elanga has gone for 55. Ekitike, how much did he go for? I think similar to this. This is the going rate now for any young talented player. It's a lot of money. And if you ask me, none of those guys have probably done enough to warrant that massive of a price tag. I like all of those players to varying extents, right? But none of them, based on their body of work and their career so far, warrant those fees. And yet the reason those clubs went and signed those players is because, again, similar to what I'm just talking about now, they aren't signing Elanga for what he might do this season. They're signing Elanga because they believe the window in which they'll have Elanga will eventually pay off that fee. He will eventually reach a level, and he'll also last that many years that in 5 years, you'll look at Elanga for 55 million and say, that was a deal worth doing. You'll look at Ekitike in 5 years and say, that was a deal worth doing. Even though when they signed him, he wasn't worth the money, after those 5 years, the production he gave you, the years of service he gave you, warranted that value. And I think Sesko is the same thought process. This is how football clubs are thinking now. The best center forward on the market this summer, in terms of surefire bet, who would perform from day one, bar maybe Ollie Watkins, was Victor Osimhen. And yet not a single big elite European club took a punt on him. First and foremost, because his wages were sky high, but because in their mind, they would rather sign somebody that in 5 years could get to or surpass Osimhen's level at the current moment, while also still giving you decent production now, rather than signing a guy now who in 5 years you don't know what he looks like. Now, me personally, I would have loved to sign Victor Osimhen for my club. And I think if football was how it was 5 years ago, Chelsea would have signed him, United probably would have signed him, Arsenal looking for a center forward would have signed him, every big club would have signed him. But the way football clubs are thinking and moving in the transfer window these days in 2025 dictates that you're going to see more Sesko signings for big money than you are Osimhen. I think it's just, that's how it is now, like it or not. So I think anybody focusing on the price tag it's futile. It doesn't matter anymore, no matter what we think, right? This is just what the game is now. Now, let's talk about Sesko's game, because we've talked about his talent, we've talked about the fee, we've talked about the signing, but what's really important is how does he fit at Man United? And this is something I haven't really spoken on too much because I want to see the deal happen first. But this is how I believe Sesko fits into this team. If you've watched Man United over the last 6 months under Emre, and if you watch them in preseason, something is very, very clear in how they want to play. They pass around the back. They try and play it down the wings. They like to play down the center when their number 10s kind of drop deep and receive the ball through the lines. That's how they like to kind of build up. They basically bypass their midfield. Man United don't really build up through their midfield. And if all else fails, Man United will typically, and similar to the Sporting team who did also a similar thing, if all else fails, Man United will resort to playing a ball over the top into either the feet or the chest or the head of their center forward, who will then be instructed to either knock it down or hold it up to get the rest of the team up the pitch. We've seen over the last 6 months that tactic be deployed with Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee up front to what I would wish I could say would be varying success, but it isn't even varying. It just has not worked out that well. Joshua Zirkzee is a striker that doesn't like to sit up front and be a target man. He likes to drop deep into the hole, receive the ball, get playing, bring others into play players in behind. That's more his game. Whereas Rasmus Højlund, I mean, literally gained a tagline of basically being a WWE wrestler because all he wants to do is absorb contact, but he almost always loses that initial contact. It's not really his game either. Now, Benjamin Sesko, if we're going to talk about negatives, does not deal with contact from behind well enough yet. For a player of his size, 6'5", I want to see this guy become much more of a physical handful for center backs. And I understand just because he's tall, it doesn't mean he's the most built, right? He's not Akinfenwa. But for a 6'5" guy, in a few years, as he continues to grow into his body and he becomes more and more experienced, this is a guy that should not be bullied by any center back in Europe. Look at the size of him, bro. He should be a handful for anybody. But right now, he's not there yet. However, what he does excel at, and your boy got into his stats bag, what he does excel at, aerial duels. I shouted them out on the eye test with Cam. I'm going to shout them out again now. Shout out to the breakdown. That's HTO, MUFC, and Umir. They do an amazing show over there. And their latest episode was talking about Sesko. And some stats they picked up were each's aerial duel success percentage. So basically how often they win aerial duels. And this kind of comes into play because, again, if you're lobbing balls down the pitch to your center forward, how can they kind of deal with them in the air? Rasmus Højlund last season won 24.6% of his aerial duels. Joshua Zirkzee, 29.9%. Benjamin Sesko won 57.4% of his aerial duels. And I mean, duh, he should be because he's 6'5". Again, have I mentioned that he's 6'5"? But it shows you the difference in levels here when we're talking about that skill. You put the ball up to this guy and he's going to be able to handle it and make sure the team keeps the ball more often than not compared to Zirkzee and Højlund. So automatically, when you're talking about Man United's tactic in terms of how they build out from the back and how they like to sometimes go direct and long to their center forward, this guy is clearly a much more natural fit for what Amram is looking for in a center forward than Højlund or Zirkzee. That much is evident. Now, when you talk about also being kind of like a target man that can get Mbeumo running in behind him or Cunha running past him, how can he affect that from that angle? Well, again, the breakdown have a great stat, and this one comes in flick-ons and how many are successful. Now, flick-ons, as we know, give the ball, first time flick across the back, flick around the corner for someone to run into. Last season, Zirkzee attempted 21 with 6 being successful for a success rate of 28%. Højlund attempted 17 with 1 successful for a success rate of 6%. And Benjamin Sesko attempted 49 with a success rate of 28%. Again, when you're looking at what Amram seems to want from a center forward in this system, it does feel like Sesko fits the mold more than what we currently have. Now, that doesn't mean that Zirkzee doesn't have a role in this team going forward. I'm sure Zirkzee will play minutes, and I believe the way he ended the second half of the season last year suggested he has a part to play in this team. I really started to grow fond of Zirkzee in the way he was playing. But with Benjamin Sesko, I think you have your number 9. You have your number 9. He is more physically commanding than Joshua Zirkzee. I think he will be an easier accommodation to the Premier League than Joshua Zirkzee. I think he'll find it easier kind of coming in from day one and suiting life in the Premier League easier than Joshua Zirkzee. I think it's a natural fit. Now, let's talk about his finishing. This guy, I talk about ball striking. That's the word when it comes to Sesko. Turn on any random comp, turn on any random game with Benjamin Sesko, and bar his height, the first thing you'll notice is how hard, how clean, and how true this guy hits a football. He leathers it, and he's scored some golazos. His goal catalog is as good as it gets. It's as good as it gets. My one thing with Sesko, though, is at the moment, he's a scorer of great goals. How do we turn him into a great goal scorer? We've heard that moniker so many times, right? You're a scorer of great goals. Flicks, volleys, long shots. How do you become a great goal scorer? Me and Cam spoke about this. Zlatan used to have this moniker thrown at him. Again, the back heels, the flicks, the bicycle kicks, the volleys, the long shots. How do you add, though, 10 to 15 goals in your locker every single season that come from you reading plays early on, getting to the back post and tapping it in for an open goal? Those goals aren't pretty. Those goals aren't going to get thrown into your comps. but that's how you become a 30 goal a season striker. Erling Haaland will score a bicycle kick against Southampton. He'll score a crazy flick against Dortmund. But then you look at the rest of his goals, it's tap in, tap in, tap in, one-on-one finish, tap in, open header, tap in, 1v1 finish, 1v1 finish. And then at the end of the season, the guy has 30, 40 goals. A goal is a goal. So while it is amazing that Sesko has a wide array of finishing, I'm sorry, for any center forward, your bread and butter has to be getting into the easiest positions to finish possible. It's what made Ruud van Nistelrooy one of the greatest of his generation. It's what's made Erling Haaland the greatest of his generation. Now, the greats like Suarez and R9, they managed to kind of mix the two of them together. But with Sesko, the reason, to be fair, right, his goal record for a 22-year-old has been sneered at by some people because, he scored 13 goals in the league last season, or 14. But for a 22-year-old, his goal record is actually pretty good. Again, I mentioned the stat in the beginning. I think since 2023, no under 23-year-old has scored more goals than Benjamin Sesko. That's all the proof you kind of need to know that for his age group, he is a prolific striker, guys. Like, I think we need to kind of be careful because we saw Haaland and because we saw Mbappe from 18, 19 years old scoring 30 goals a season. That's the expectancy here. No, and in fact, most strikers tend to age like fine wine. And the older they get, the more clinical they become, the more astute in front of goal they become, the more intelligent with their movement they become. And then all of a sudden, by 26, 27, 28, they're the finished product. But at 22 years old, unless you're R9, Haaland, Mbappe, Rooney, like, you aren't the finished article yet. So I think Sesko has time on his hands, and he has enough in his game already to kind of afford him that time as well too. That's something Højlund didn't have, right? If Højlund wasn't scoring during games, but he was contributing, getting others into play, being a handful for defenders, Højlund would not be on the exit door right now. But the fact is, when he wasn't scoring, the guy wasn't offering anything, and he wasn't scoring regularly enough to begin with. I think that's where Sesko already has an advantage on him. Overall, as you guys can see, I'm high on this Sesko deal. I see a lot of people questioning it, and I hear it, man. Look, Man United have scarred a lot of people in terms of the business they do. We've signed young strikers, we've signed old strikers, we've signed strikers in their prime, all to varying levels of success, right? We signed Lukaku in the prime of his career. Didn't work. I mean, he scored a few goals, but didn't really work out, right? Signed Zlatan. After a year, he was done. We signed Martial, ultimately on potential. He scored a lot of goals over the course of his career, but never reached his max potential. So, guys, the reality is we've done everything possible at center forward. We've signed young strikers and they flopped. We've signed old strikers, they flopped. We've signed strikers in the prime, they flopped. At the end of the day, we have to trust that the manager we have at the helm right now is different to previous managers. We have to hope that the recruitment team that we have in charge right now is different to previous recruitment teams. And we have to hope that Sesko is different to strikers of the past as well too. And if all three of those things are true, then I think we've signed a damn good player here. So I understand being apprehensive, I understand being cautious, but some of the things I've seen said about Benjamin Sesko already, for me, are blasphemous. I think you got to give the kid a chance. You have to. People are coming into this with like already preconceived notions about how he plays, what he's going to do. He scored 14 last year, so what are we expecting this year? Guys, Isak scored like 4 to 7 goals the year before he joined Newcastle. Look at him now. He scored 20 goals back to back to back. I believe in Sesko, and this kid will have my full backing. You guys know me, right? I don't gas signings just because they came to United. I told you guys from the dot what I thought about Ugarte. And with Højlund, I was very, very quick to kind of distance myself away from him too. If I believe Man United have signed a poor player, I will say it. If I believe Man United employ a poor player, I will say it. But Benjamin Sesko, this guy's got my support, man. Now, the rest is football. No pun intended, right? Shout out the podcast. The rest is football now. Let's see what they do on the pitch. They plan to unveil him on Saturday in the game against Fiorentina. One thing I like about Sesko as well too, right? First and foremost, prioritizing us over Newcastle, taking less money, reportedly, than Newcastle were offering, and pushing Leipzig to accept United's bid, which in terms of their total package was less than Newcastle's. I think that's admirable. I think that's admirable and shows a real desire to be at this club. And I'm sorry, guys. This is the striker that Arsenal wanted before they signed Gyökeres. Let's not get away from that. Let's not pretend like that's not the truth. Arsenal's priority this summer, after they couldn't get Isak, was Sesko. That was Arteta's main priority. That was his main target. Couldn't get him because of the fee. Didn't view him as worth that fee. And they then kind of changed direction into Gyökeres. Sesko was their guy. Newcastle wanted Sesko. They wanted Sesko to replace Isak. Yes, after they wanted Ekitike and they wanted Delap and they wanted Pedro, but they wanted Sesko. So two clubs who I definitely rate when it comes to recruitment, they're definitely well-run clubs, wanted Benjamin Sesko. And I don't feel like any noise was made about how he's a flop or how he's going to come to their clubs and flop and he's not good enough. No noise was really made about that until he comes to Man United and all of a sudden, everybody's losing their minds. Stay on that side. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm here. I'm here for Benjamin Sesko. I'm here, and I think at the very minimum, you got to give this kid a chance because I think the upside is just worth it, man. If he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. But guys, if Benjamin Sesko becomes everything we think he can be and more, I think we've signed one of the best striker prospects in the game. Let's see how it plays out. Quickly on Rasmus Højlund, I think the writing is on the wall now in terms of his future. My guy it's over. Like, he came to the media after one of the preseason games saying he's committed to the club and he wants to fight for his place. In my eyes, Rasmus Højlund is not only behind Sesko, he's also behind Xerxes. And I would even say he's behind Cunha in my eyes when it comes to playing number 9 for Man United. Ladies and gentlemen, I've heard so many people say this window, I'd rather sign a midfielder and just give Højlund another year. And for me, that's like, it's blowing my mind. Yes, we need a midfielder. I'm not trying to get away from that. But to pretend like the center forward position has not been a massive, massive issue for this club for the last 2 years is mind-blowing. And it's actually gaslighting as well, too. You're now trying to gaslight me into forgetting what Højlund did last season. Guys, the guy was like playing with 10 men at times. Cheeto Obi Martin came into the team towards the end of the season, and genuinely, he would come on for the last 10 minutes, and more chances would find their way to Cheeto over 10 minutes as a sub than they would for Højlund over 80. Forget about Højlund even scoring goals. When he would even get a chance, when he would even have a shot on target, we would be encouraged because he starved us. So for all the people saying, oh, I would rather just give Højlund another year and buy a midfielder, please, what are you smoking? What lace of crack are you being served? The club has to move on from this. It's an experiment that has failed. There's no getting around it. There's no sugarcoating it. Rasmus Højlund and Man United has not worked out. And in my eyes, the best solution right now, wipe your hands, sell him because his value will never be higher right now than it is, and just pretend it never happened. Højlund will benefit from it because I think he needs a totally different environment around him. He needs to completely, I feel like even more so than just a technical lull that he's in. He's in a mental lull at Man United now. His confidence is so low that I think he just needs a new club. I hope Højlund becomes the striker we thought he could be before he joined United. I hope he does it somewhere else. But it's not going to happen at United. In my eyes, it's impossible for it to happen at United. I just think he's too far gone. And as for United, I've seen too many times a player clearly after 2 years, not good enough. We keep him for a 3rd year, and his value just continues to lessen and lessen and lessen until he becomes untouchable for clubs. Then he's on 1 year left on his contract. The club extends a club option to extend him for another year, and he ends up leaving for free. Guys, we can't keep moving like this. We cannot keep moving like this. People say, reports are saying United value Højlund at around 40 million right now. Even for 30, I would get rid of him. 30 million for Højlund right now. It's less than half of what we paid for him. But if we can get that for how bad he's been in the last 2 years, in my mind, that's decent. That's decent because it's more than I was even expecting. Make it happen. Do not keep Højlund around the club like a bad smell when his value is just going to plummet more and more and more. Cash in. This is what Chelsea have made a name of over the last few years. Liverpool, Darwin Nunez. What was it? 2-3 years at the club. It didn't work out. They were given 40-something million for him, 40 million pounds. Take it. Forget it even happened. Go buy someone better. That's how it works. Don't allow these players to just fester around the club. They just sit in the corner and gather dust. Make the most money you can off them now, because that's business, that's elite sport, and find somebody else to do it. Thank you, Rasmus Højlund, for trying, because I can never question your effort. I just don't think you were good enough. But this idea that he wants to fight for his place, it's over. You had the last 2 years to fight for your place. It's elite level sport. This is not charity. Thank you, but it's time to go. And now, all roads lead to Baleba. All roads lead to Carlos Baleba. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be very, very difficult. I'm already reading reports about how Brighton have no intention to sell. They want to sell him next summer at the earliest. Ineos, I'm not asking for much. Bring me Carlos Baleba. Ladies and gentlemen, like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about Benjamin Sesko. Where do you see him kind of fitting into this team? How many goals do you expect him to score in the first season? And how do you think he'll do against Arsenal, the team that did want him earlier in the window? Let me know. Like, share, subscribe. Road to 80K, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace.